You're about to listen to a BBC podcast, and trust me, you'll get there in a moment. But if you're a comedy fan, I'd really like to tell you a bit about what we do. I'm Julia Mackenzie, and I commission comedy podcasts at the BBC. It's a bit of a dream job, really. Comedy is a fantastic, joyous thing to do because really you're making people laugh, making people's days a bit better, helping them process all manner of things. But, I also know that comedy is really subjective and everyone has different tastes. So we've got a huge range of comedy on offer, from satire to silly, shocking to soothing, profound to just general prattling about. So if you fancy a laugh, find your next comedy at BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast with me, Amy Canavan, kickstarting your week with all the news, views and analysis you need. As we record, it is Sunday the 17th of March and here's what's coming up.
Probably this will be the only pitch in all the leagues in Scotland where a game will be postponed. So I think it's really bad advertisement for the league.
Rangers are raging after Dundee postponement and Celtic are back on top.
Here's a chance, James Forrest takes a touch and shoots and scores!
The game of the weekend was surely at Rugby Park.
David Watson's in behind! Five-star Kilmarnock! The star boy with the wonder goal!
We'll reflect on that incredible Killie comeback and...
It's good to see the top three sides are all within touching distance of one another, and it's shaping up to be incredibly exciting.
We hear about a potentially pivotal day in the SWPL as Glasgow City and Celtic cut the gap on Rangers.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
I'm thrilled to say I am not dissecting all this weekend's talking points solo. I'm doing so in the company of Ayr United winger Aiden McGeady and former Rangers, Celtic and Scotland striker Kenny Miller. It's a pleasure to have you on, guys. Let's get a quick question in to get us going. Kenny, we'll start with yourself. What was your highlight of the weekend's Scottish football action?
I think you've already touched on it, Amy. I think that comeback from Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, it was stunning stuff. I mean, 5 goals in 18 minutes, and I think the final goal we watched and the solo effort just to kind of round it off was a real standout moment for me over the weekend. But incredible comeback, 2-0 down at half time, and to score those 5 goals in that short space of time, it was eye-catching stuff.
Aidan, as a current Ayr United employee, there's no way that can be your highlight of the weekend. So what is your own?
Listen, the one that I had in mind, I had a couple in my mind, not just a moment. I suppose looking at the Celtic game, Nicholas Green's coming for a bit of criticism so far. Good assist, done well for Kyogo's goal. Kyogo go back to kind of doing what he does best, and then for him to get a goal as well will be brilliant for his confidence. But my own personal opinion, the game at Rugby Park was an unbelievable game as well. I watched the highlights last night, but a young striker for us scored his first league goal of the season, Fraser Bryden. It was the winner actually yesterday. A guy I've got a lot of time for. First league goal of the season, and he's got a bright future ahead of him, so I was buzzing for him. I'm buzzing that we get the 3 points as well.
Of course you're buzzing, and we'll dig into both those points, no doubt, throughout the podcast. There is plenty more to get through with Aidan and Kenny, but before all that, let's quickly run through the latest Scottish football headlines. Rangers say they are extremely disappointed and angered by the late postponement of their game at Dundee on Sunday. Their frustration comes after Celtic went back to the top of the Premiership with a 3-1 win over St Johnstone on Saturday. The game of the weekend probably came at Rugby Park, where Kilmarnock roared back from 2 goals down at half-time to beat St Mirren 5-2. David Martindale says he takes the blame for his side's relegation troubles after defeat at Hibs left Libby 10 points adrift at the foot of the table. 11th place Ross County ensured they keep in touch with the teams above them, though, with a 2-1 win over Hearts in Dingwall. Aberdeen have moved up to 9th after a 1-0 win at Motherwell. The Dons now expect to appoint a new manager during the international break and will conclude their interview process this week. And in the SWPL, Celtic cut Rangers' lead at the top of the table to just 1 point with a 2-1 win over their Old Firm rivals, while Glasgow City remain level with Celtic in second after beating Hearts 2-0. Plenty went on this weekend, but we'll start with the drama in Dundee. It was the fourth game to be called off at Dens this season following heavy rain. In a statement, Rangers say they're extremely disappointed and angered by the late postponement. Kenny, you were up there, weren't you? Can you understand the frustration from Philippe Clement and Rangers, and of course the supporters as well?
Yeah, listen, of course, I think the main source of frustration is around the communication of actually what was going on. You can't help the weather. If it's again, I don't know if could Dundee be better prepared for these types of situations, particularly, like you say, after it being the fourth game it's been called off this season. But I think that, like I say, the main source of frustration is the fact that nobody had let Rangers know that there was any issue. And it was their kit man who was actually at the stadium early, obviously, to get the kit and get everything prepared for the game. That actually then got in contact with someone on the staff to let them know that there was going to be a pitch inspection. And then when you leave it that late, obviously you're bringing the fans into it, the travelling situation. There's no doubt there were been probably like thousands on the road already on the way up to Dundee to watch the game, and for that late postponement, I think again that kind of just feeds into it. But like I say, the main source is a lack of communication. Rangers felt there should have been more, they should have been made more aware of the situation, and if there was going to be any potential postponement, that they could have communicated also through their social media channels and let the fans know what was going on. But like I said, it was obviously eventually called off probably about 10:30. So there's no doubt there would have been many fans on the way up to Dundee for the game.
Kenny touches on it there, Aidan, that it was only about 90 minutes before kick-off that the official confirmation came through. Philippe Clement says it's a really bad advertisement for the league. It was the only game across the 4 SPFL leagues to be postponed over the weekend. It's far from ideal for all parties, isn't it? And it really doesn't reflect well.
No, I listened to his comments when the game's called off, and I'd have to agree with that. Like Kenny says there, the communication is extremely poor, and I don't think it's just that. I think there's a lot of frustration around many factors in the SFA and the SPFL. Like that, like you're going to have fans travelling to the game. You're going to have a lot of fans, people on the way to the game, people travelling, buses leaving, the teams there, which is fair enough because Rangers probably stayed there the night before, I'd imagine. But there's a lot of other things in the SPFL that come into consideration in my view as well. The fact that that's just one thing, but there's a multitude of things that we could fix. Like, for example, in England Championship you play 46 games. Up here you play 33 games, but we finish later. And you have a 2-3 week break in the summer. There's been loads of these things at PFA meetings that we have that they try and voice the players' concerns to the SFA. And maybe I'm digressing slightly on a smaller point here, but the lack of communication is really poor. And I think if Rangers didn't have any communication at all and had no foresight in it, that or any inkling that the game is going to be called off, then that's extremely poor.
I don't think you are digressing, Aidan, actually, and I think it's quite interesting from a player perspective. How detrimental can a situation like this be? Because obviously the preparations, the fact that it's only 90 minutes before kickoff, everything is going into this game as normal sort of thing. We now obviously have an international break, have no idea when the game's going to get played. There's rumours that it may be the first week in April because, as you mentioned, we're getting towards the end of the season. It's hectic as it is anyway. It has to be done before the split. Just sort of psychologically from a player point of view, I don't know if you've had a scenario where it's been such a postponement so close to the original kick-off time, but just how can that play on a player's mind?
Yeah, it's hard for the players because the players are in game mode, aren't they? They've got everything in their head about what they're going to do in the game. They've got the instructions. I'd imagine the team would have been named, so they've got their focus on the game completely. To then be called off due to a lot of pitch. Like these things do happen. You can't really help the weather. These things happen in football. It's probably the surrounding conditions that everyone's upset at. And then obviously on the other hand, it leaves obviously Celtic top of the league going into an international break with Rangers playing catch up now, which psychologically, myself and Kenny would have been there. When you're playing catch up and you're the ones that have to keep winning to maintain maintain the pace and keep up with your rivals. It's psychologically, the focus now shifts back to Rangers, when it could have been slightly different if the game was ahead. If the game went ahead,
that would be the thing for me. That would definitely be on my mind. See, as a player, like, you're preparing, and see, when the game comes around in a few weeks, you're going to be exact same moment. But the Rangers might actually be in a better place in terms of injuries and who's actually available for selection. But it's what Aiden says there. Rangers have worked ever so hard over this last 4 months to actually get that gap down, and then obviously surpass Celtic at the top of that league and get themselves a 2-point gap, and that can still be achieved by winning the game in hand. But just through, and it's like the weather, I get it, but see, when you've had previous of getting games cancelled, can you maybe have that, like, the foresight to, you know what, can we get the pitch protected at all, just in case, because we've got forecast rain or heavy rains being forecast overnight? Could they have done a little bit more to have the game? But listen, they were working really, really hard from apparently 5-6 o'clock in the morning to try and get the game on, so you can't fault the ground staff and then the people that came down to help the ground staff, and Dundee for that matter, to try and get the game on. But I just look at it and think, right, you know what, there's been 3 games already cancelled. Could we have had a little bit of foresight to get to kind of protect the pitch? But again, on Rangers' side, it's I'll be disappointed the game's not went ahead. I'll be disappointed that they can't go into this international break top of the league, where they've worked so hard to get back at Celtic and take them over at the top of the league. And you go into it now, like, Celtic are sitting top for the next couple of weeks, and like you say, it's trying to fit. Where is this game going to go? Do you fire it in between for Rangers, in between Hibs and Celtic, which becomes an absolute monstrous week? Or do you put it after Celtic, which it probably would need to be, because then it needs to be before the last split game, which was between Celtic and Ross County. So it's another midweek game thrown into there, where I'm sure a lot of talk's been, you know what, out of Europe now you can just concentrate on the league and you've got week to week. Well, no, now you're going to have to fit another tough trip up to Dens in between potentially 2 really, really tough, either week, to be honest with you, whether it's before or after the Old Firm. It's going to be a tough week for Rangers.
Absolutely it is. And just to round off this sort of section, Dundee Chief Executive John Nelms did say that the hosts done all they could, and he did tell BBC Scotland earlier on Sunday.
Well, we're supposed to get 6 mil of rain last night. We got over 12, and we've had the groundsman out here since 5 a.m. I've been out here since 5 a.m. Getting as many forks into the ground as you can, and we just ran out of time, to be quite honest. Would it be playable by noon? That's debatable. Would it be playable by 3? Absolutely.
Right, let's get to some action that was played on Saturday. There is nowhere else to start other than Rugby Park. We touched on it in the intro there, Kenny. How can you explain a turnaround like this? Have you known one like this? Have you been a part of one like this? What a crazy 18, 19 minutes for Kilmarnock in that second half.
You know what? Like, there's one thing. Whatever Derek McInnes had said to Kilmarnock, or by the way, gave his players at half time, and I wouldn't mind them sharing it that with us, kind of moving forward, like trying to get into a coaching career, because it's an incredible turnaround. But see, for the other side of it, for St Mirren to concede 5 goals in that short space of time, it's absolutely unforgivable. It's almost impossible to lose that amount of goals in that over an 18-minute period. So there'll be a lot of analysis and autopsy, I'm sure, of what's went on for a St Mirren perspective. But full credit to Kilmarnock, because I actually went and watched Motherwell Aberdeen yesterday, and you're sitting at half time thinking, oh, there's St Mirren moved up into 4th, and everything's going well. They're just carrying on this wonderful season. And then all of a sudden, my friend sitting next to me goes, oh, it's 2-2, and it's 3-2, it's 4-2, it's 5-2. It's just an incredible turn of events. But all credit to Kilmarnock. They've had a wonderful season. Obviously, on their own pitch, they are very, very strong. That's why it was pretty surprising that they were 2-0 down at half time. But shoot, by God, did they turn it around, and they found themselves again, cemented that 4th spot in the league, because again, St Mirren obviously were right on their tails. But it's a huge result, and even in that context of fighting for European spots, it was a big result for Kilmarnock.
Absolutely. Kenny touches on it there, Aidan. It was probably one of the games of the day when you were looking across it, and the fight for top 4, and certainly both sides trying to nail down their top 6 position. But the plaudits and the compliments and everything is all going to be about Kilmarnock, but a very, very worrying 20-minute spell or so for St Mirren and Stephen Robinson, when it is so unlike them, isn't it?
Yeah, so unlike them. That's the thing that Kenny touched on there. It's to lose that amount of goals is extremely worrying, and in such a short space of time. I think they would probably do that in training on Monday and Tuesday and play defence v attack 7v5, and you'd maybe score. You might even score a goal, but it comes to a game and you concede 5 in 18, 19 minutes. It was an incredible comeback. I mean, very unlike one of Stephen Robinson's sides to concede that many goals as well, because normally defensively they're very, very well set up. So I don't really know what happened. I never dissected the game at all. I seen the highlights, and I was actually sitting watching with my dad, and he was like, "Oh, this finished 2-0, didn't it?" And I went, "No, I didn't. Just wait till you see." And then he was like, couldn't believe it. It was. Listen, Kilmarnock, like Kenny said, whatever Derek McInnes said at half time, I mean, it seemed to work, and it's got them into that spot now for, I mean, potential European football, which would be massive for Kilmarnock.
We all need whatever Derek McInnes served up at half time. You mentioned, Kenny, you were at Fir Park witnessing Aberdeen's win against Motherwell, a huge win. What differences did you see from Peter Leven's side, obviously in the dugout once again, and like I say, guiding Aberdeen to a potentially priceless 3 points at Motherwell?
Listen, I've never seen too many differences. It was still, in terms of the football they played, it was still pretty direct. I felt Motherwell, but for me anyway, I think when you're playing against a team that are really struggling at that, I think that was 11 league games without a win it was for Aberdeen, so really, really struggling. If I was in the Motherwell camp, I would have liked to have seen them a little bit more aggressive and trying to get in Aberdeen's faces, because they allowed them to get into a kind of rhythm, and Conor Barron and Graham Shinney were able to get on the ball quite easily, and even along the back line they were on the ball, just kind of getting into a rhythm and getting into a flow under no real pressure. And again, for Motherwell, when you're facing a team that's struggling, I would have liked to see them get right in their face and go after them and try and put them under pressure, particularly at home. And Motherwell had potentially a top 6 place at stake yesterday. They're in no bad form. They're starting to make good strides towards the top 6, and they're at home against a team that have no won in 11. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. But listen, it wasn't a great game, I would say that. Motherwell missed 2 chances. Dan Casey had a good chance. I think it was a really good block. Sam Nicholson had a good shot chance as well, and had a couple of breakaways Motherwell that they could have made more of. Had that little bit more kind of quality in the pass or the decision that they made. And when the moment came for Aberdeen, they took their chance. They had a good chance early with Junior Hoylett. He chose not to shoot, and they actually tried to dive and get a penalty and got a booking for it. But the finish, the ball came back off the post. I don't know if it was Jack McKenzie or Miofsky had shot, and it came back off the post really quick, and it fell back to someone who's actually been out of the team in recent weeks, Lane Clarkson, who's a really, really good football player, good technician. And when it came, he just went on the side volley, got it down into the ground. Technique was excellent, and it flew past Liam Kelly, and that was the ultimately deciding moment in the game. I have to say, I felt the goal that Motherwell got chopped off was very harsh. For the handball on the way through to Lennon Miller. When we seen it in real time, we thought it might have hit a Motherwell player on the way through and went in the goal. But obviously now you see it was actually on the way out as the cross was coming in. I think it maybe just brushed past Theo Bair's arm. So I think that was a very, very harsh call to rule that goal out.
It turned out to be a crucial 3 points for Aberdeen, given that Ross County pulled off perhaps one of the surprises of the day, defeating Hearts and earning their own 3 points. So County now just 1 point behind St Johnstone, remaining 3 behind Aberdeen. Aidan, that could prove to be colossal for Ross County, couldn't it? They are obviously trying to get out of that dreaded 11th place, that playoff relegation place. Nobody ever wants to be in there. But getting a victory like that over Hearts, and for Don Cowie as well, that could be significant.
Listen, it was a massive result for Ross County, but with Aberdeen winning, it just takes a slight edge off that massive victory yesterday. But it brings the pack closer together. I mean, even Hibs winning yesterday as well. Hibs are in 6th place, but from 6 kind of downwards, it's very, very tight. I mean, with St Johnstone, Ross County, obviously I think Livingston are well out of it at the minute. Obviously they've got Celtic up next as well, but it could be a massive result for Ross County, because you can see them, it kind of gets this time of the season, they start to kind of get results. Albeit last season it didn't quite happen, but they kind of start to put a run of results together to kind of climb out of that relegation zone. and it just putting the pressure on the other teams above them. Like, but massive result for Aberdeen yesterday, off the back of 11 without a win.
Absolutely, and the big results just kept coming. You sort of mentioned it early on, Aidan, Celtic's 3-1 win over St Johnstone. You mentioned Nicholas Kuhn. He certainly got the fans talking at the weekend, as did Kyogo. What a time for the pair to be hitting a bit of form again, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how momentum can shift very, very quickly in the league in this city. It's you go 2 weeks and then all of a sudden momentum seems to be back in maybe Celtic's favour. People might argue with that, but with the game being called off today, and then Celtic have Livingston, who you'd expect to beat next week, and then Kenny was talking about you've got Rangers trying to possibly cram in a fixture between Hibs and the Celtic game. Things can change very quickly. But Celtic, from what I seen yesterday, Celtic played well. I mean, it was good, like I said at the start of the show. Nicholas Kuhn, I think, one of those signings that was brought in, and then other players have went out on loan, or other players have left who maybe questioned, who have hit a bit of form. Mikey Johnson, for example, hit a bit of form at West Brom, and then Kuhn's. Listen, I always understand when when you come into a new team, it's difficult to hit the ground running, especially if you're coming from a foreign league. But yesterday done well, cut inside and showed a good bit of technique, and it was kind of like Kyogo of old. I think Kyogo's been missing that this season. Crosses and first time crosses, and he's always been there. His movement's always been there to be free in the box. But good to see him scoring, and then couldn't get an assist, and then obviously couldn't finish off with a goal as well. And Forrest coming on the pitch and scoring, which is feels like it was 15 years ago he was doing that, but still doing it.
He just does not stop, James Forrest, does he? And we'll just wrap up the Premiership action, Kenny. Two sides that you've had a little bit of involvement with. Not hard when it comes to yourself. Hibs looked very, very professional against Livingston on Saturday, didn't they? It's a really, really tough one for Livingston to sort of deal with. But that first half in particular, Hibs were probably one of the most complete they've looked, I think, under Nick Montgomery. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I agree. They absolutely blew Livingston away in that opening half. I mean, it could have been more. You know, they got off 3 goals. It was interesting to see, actually. Adam Lafondra, I mean, again, you're talking about highlights and performances and what was the pick. I think his performance, again, it just came to mind after I came up with David Watson, but Adam Lafondra was key. You know, he was involved in the 3 goals. His hold-up play was excellent. His movement was excellent. Obviously, he's in between the sticks for his goal, where all good number 9 should be. But it was a really good performance. I think the new players that arrived in January have gave them an extra little boost, particularly in that attacking sense. Going forward, they look pretty creative. So it was a big win as well, because they're fighting for that last spot in the top 6, and with Dundee playing Rangers and now the game being cancelled today, they're back into that spot as well now. So it's going to be nip and tuck, I think, between Dundee and Hibs, and like you say, there is a couple others that are just kind of queuing up behind as well. But I think there's that one spot left. It'll be interesting the next round of fixtures when Hibs have got Rangers, and Rangers have kind of made light work of Hibs, to be honest with you, this season. So if Rangers want to get that result, I think Dundee have got a game against St Johnstone, so that gives them a chance that they could maybe then jump Hibs again if results were to go their way. So it's going to go right to the wire. It's going to go right to the wire on the title. It's going to go right to the wire on the European spots. Probably no relegation, because I agree with Ed, and I think this could be the year it just catches up with Livingston. But top 6 and then the playoff spot as well. It's all we play for, so it's going to be an interesting last 8 games of the season.
If Hibs don't make the top 6, would you say that's a failure this season, considering just made the top 6 last season?
I think it's a disaster, Aidan. I really do, and I think it's a huge failing, you know, and that goes for Aberdeen also. You know, like Aberdeen are not going to get in the top 6, so you're looking at 2 of the biggest clubs we've got in our country. I mean, definitely. For me, Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen all should be fighting out for the European spots and fighting, maybe pushing each other for 3rd spot. Hearts have got it all their own way this year. They've had a wonderful season under Stephen Naismith, and they're going to get that 3rd spot. But for Hibs and Aberdeen potentially not to make the top 6, for me, it's a huge failing on both parts, because they're spending a lot more money than what they've ever spent. And again, even if Hibs get there, I know, like you say, they only kind of snuck in on the last day last year. I think it was the fact that Livingston never won their game. That's what actually got Hibs into the top 6 last year. So they were having to rely on other results on the 33rd game of the season. And you know what? I might go to the same situation this year, where it's right to the last game of the 30, like week 33, before we actually know who the top 6 is, which we probably will be for that last slot. And for me, it's no great for Hibs. What I would say about them is they're kind of moving in the right direction at this moment in time. You know, they're starting to have a decent bit of form, and if they get in the top 6, you never know, they can maybe get the results to maybe even challenge for that last European spot. But like you said, if they don't and they fall out of the top six, absolutely huge failing for me.
Yeah, I just feel that if they don't, it's more of the same of what's went on in the past. You know, last season was snuck in the last day, and this season you change manager, and then it's more of the same. It's kind of like almost when's the trend going to stop, and when's it going to be Hibs are challenging Hearts? Hibs are challenging Hearts every season for third and fourth, along with Aberdeen. That's the thing that concerns me. Obviously, having been there last season, I think the things I see, you see one good result, a couple of good results, and then it's back to a defeat, and then you look at the table and you're thinking, how are Hibs not in the top six? I mean, they're just in the top six by way of winning yesterday and the game being called off. It's just, that's the concerning thing for me with Hibs, which is obviously it's a club that you played for and a club that I played for as well, but yeah, concerning for me.
It's the consistency there, isn't it? It's what you've said there. They seem to have a decent little run, and then it's like maybe going 3-4 without a win. There's never been really a consistent, and it's not like, listen, results are going to go up and down, you know, that's me, but in terms of the performances as well, you're turning up some weeks and you're actually like, what are Hibs trying to do? What are we going to get for Hibs this week? What Hibs are going to turn up? That's why I think at this moment are starting to see a wee bit more improvement, and whether it's through work, whether it's through maybe they've just got a few better players in the building.
They've definitely got some better players, and I know that the players they brought in January have definitely helped, which has been a big boost. Marcondes, I think, from the players I've spoke to as well, they're saying don't know how they've managed to get him. Technically he's that good, but I mean, it's always good when you've got players there.
The big lad, Miller Leader's made a big difference as well. Good technical player, and he's been popping up with a few goals. So it's, like I say, it's theirs. It's in their hands. If they can get the right results, they'll get in the top six. But like you say, it's how do they push on? Where do they progress? Because for me, I asked the question last week: is just sneaking into the top six, is that good enough for Hibs? I'm sure the new investors that have came in, will be saying no.
No, I agree. I don't think it is. It was almost celebrated last season when we made the top six, and I was like, I don't think that's success. I mean, we should look how far ahead of us Hearts are and the other teams are. And listen, I was a part of that as well. Of course I was, because I was part of that team. But when you look around, you think Hibs should be, for the size of the club and the budget, should be right up there.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Excitement is ramping up in the top flight, and it's always been an absolute boiling point in the Championship. Aidan, let's quickly dip into the second tier. We all love it. A massive win up in Inverness for Ayr United, wasn't it? It's when you look at the bottom of that table, it's frightening actually. You look at the entire table really, but the bottom, even with that win, it's still such a precarious position that Ayr sort of find themselves in. But are you still on the look up? Are you looking for a potentially promotion playoff spot still?
You see how tight the league is. You actually never know. If you put it on a that was a first win, I think, in 3 or 4 with a few bad performances with deserved defeats and then a few close defeats as well. But if we put our run of games together, if we go 2-3 games on the bounce, we could be 3, 4, 5 points off of a third place. It's a very, very, very tight league. And the thing is with the Championship, you can't actually predict anything at all. I mean, you look on your phone after the game about at the results, and you can never have a pick. I mean, whoever's doing an accumulator or a coupon for a Championship game, got to be skint, got to be, because it's so unpredictable. But massive result for us yesterday. Yeah, we needed it because it's psychologically as well for us. It's a big boost because Inverness are there. They were there right next to us, I think a point behind, and now we've went 4 clear of them with a game in hand. With that win yesterday, like I touched on earlier, Fraser's winner. Wasn't the prettiest game to watch. It was a poor pitch. Difficult for either team to try and play football. Inverness had a few chances in the first half, but when we got the goal, we kind of controlled most of the game. They got a penalty, and listen, we'll go back to that as well. They got a penalty, and these things, and in the Premier Division, it would never have been given, but in the Championship, it's weird. These, challenges and fouls and penalty decisions that are blatantly obvious, they get given the other way. I've never seen it before. Honestly, never seen it before. Penalty in stroke half time is never a penalty. But then we came up with a winner and held out, and we've got it's a massive win for us to to go towards us staying in the league.
Absolutely, that is a massive win. What wasn't a massive win though, Kenny, just finally on the championship, I was at Hampden yesterday. Wraith Rovers missing the opportunity to go top, capitalising on Dundee United's dreadful defeat actually against Dunfermline on Friday night on the telly. You obviously were at Firhill during the week catching Wraith Rovers with us. Can't follow up. Ian Murray though was quick to shoot me down post match. I asked him if it was a missed opportunity, and instead he said that it's been a great week. 3 clean sheets, narrowed the gap obviously on Dundee United, clawed back 4 points. But from the outside, that has to look like a missed opportunity, doesn't it? I may just try and be making up for my own perhaps error, but
no, well, Amy, he's quite right. He's a manager in charge of a club. He's always going to try and protect his players and his club, and he's quite right. You shoot you down in that, but we can say it's a missed opportunity. And the thing is, at the top of that league, it's like nobody wants to go and take it. There's been, both of them have hit kind of over the last maybe kind of 5 or 6 games that they've lost games, they've drew games, they've dropped points. You're thinking at one moment, you think Dundee United are going to step on because, again, with their budget and their resources and the size of the club that they are at this level, they absolutely should be doing that. I mean, every credit to Ian Murray and his Wraith Rovers players and his staff that they've managed to stay with Dundee United over the course of it. But just over the last 5 or 6 games, just like I looked at it and I seen that result on Friday night and I thought, right, okay, you've had a really gritty result on Tuesday night at Firhill against Partick. And by the way, maybe never deserved it actually. Partick probably deserved to get something out of that game. But you got the 1-0, you closed the gap. And then Dundee United take a doing against Dunfermline on Friday night. It just presents you with an opportunity. You can go and follow up and get back to the top. And you talk about pressure. I set some real pressure on that Dundee United team. As I said, massive favourites to go direct up, and maybe not just go up and win the league, to do it with a bit in hand. And at this moment in time, going with 7 games left of the season, it's neck and neck, and it's goal difference it is there. And you're going to have a massive game against each other probably in a few weeks' time. So again, like the championship, league title still up for grabs. I'll probably go to the wire. You see how, Aiden's touched on it, if you win a couple of games, you'll find yourself in the playoffs. If you're Dunfermline, you're Ayr, even down to Queen's Park, they can probably get themselves back into it. So playoffs are all up for grabs, and then I think Arbroath are probably going to be gone at the bottom of the league. And you talk about missed opportunities. Wraith Rovers are 2-0 up against Arbroath, who were bottom of the league a few weeks back, and lose 3-2. So there's been a lot of missed opportunities, but there's no doubt it's a very, very exciting league in every aspect. It's similar to the Premier League. Playoffs are up for grabs, league titles up for grabs, and you've got space at the bottom of the league as well. There's still a lot to play for.
And finally, it was the opening round of post-split fixtures in the SWPL this Sunday. And here to fill us in on all the goings-on is BBC Sports Scotland's Charlotte Cohen. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining me. A narrow win for Celtic over Rangers. How important was this result? Of course, that's now just 1 point behind Joe Potter's league leaders.
Oh, yeah, well, it's absolutely massive. I mean, had Rangers won this game, all of a sudden it's 7 points separating Celtic and Rangers. And, even at this early stage of the split, that feels like a big gap. So it's a massive win. And I also thought Celtic actually played really, really well. They've obviously been improving in recent weeks under the new manager. But yeah, I think they'll take huge confidence from the victory as well going into these last 9 games now.
You mentioned that Celtic have been on the up in the last few weeks. Centre to that has to be the return of Tash Flint, doesn't it? It was one that excited many across SWPL. Our presence was certainly missed in the first half of the season. You could see that after such an impactful time with Fran Alonso's then side last season. Getting on the score sheet again, she is of uber importance to Celtic, isn't she?
Oh, absolutely. And she just, every time she got the ball, she looks a threat. I mean, she's strong, she's powerful, she's so good with the ball at her feet. And yeah, as you say, her importance to this Celtic side cannot be underestimated, and I think she seems to be very important to the way Elena Sadiku wants to play as well. But yeah, I mean, she got the goals that ultimately won the game today, and yeah, she'll be massive for them in these games coming up.
What was the reaction like from Rangers? They went 2-0 down, obviously it ended up 2-1. They went close at the death as well. They perhaps could have snatched a point, but I was at Meadowbank last week actually for the cup game where Rangers had to keep fighting back because Hibs kept fighting back, but they eventually got the job done rather convincingly. But what was the reaction like from Joe Potter's side?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because it was kind of a different Rangers to what we've seen of late. They looked, I don't know, a little bit nervous, I think. I mean, Jane Ross coming on and getting that goal, and they did threaten certainly towards the end, but I don't know, there was something about the side today that we haven't really seen in recent weeks. It felt like there was maybe something missing. I don't know if perhaps the pressure was getting to them, they just kind of couldn't handle it. But yeah, it was certainly different, and certainly not the Rangers that I think we're all used to seeing this season.
One side that are used to dealing with the pressure and usually pretty good at handling it is Glasgow City. They also moved to within a point of Rangers, just behind Celtic on goal difference. They managed to come away unscathed from the Orion, which is a very tricky venue to go to. 2-0 victory for Leanne Ross's side. This title race, if it can be their way, will really go all the way, won't it?
Oh, absolutely. And Glasgow City looked so good against Hearts. I mean, they were just so threatening. It could have probably been more. But yeah, it's just nice to have this excitement once again. I mean, we saw what happened last season with the title race going down to the final day. And I mean, we could potentially have that going on again. But yeah, it's good to see the top three sides are all within touching distance of one another, and it's shaping up to be incredibly exciting.
Excitement everywhere in Scottish football, but that's all we've got time for today. My thanks go to Aiden McGeady, Kenny Miller and Charlotte Cohen, and thank you for listening. Remember, we publish new episodes every weekday morning, so you can get your daily dose of Scottish football bright and early. So if you haven't done so already, just follow and subscribe so you don't miss out. Until tomorrow, where I will be back with your Scottish football podcast once again. Bye-bye for now.
Just a quick reminder, the Behind the Goals podcast is available every Tuesday with me, Rachel Corsey, and me, Leanne Crichton. It's your one-stop shop for our take on everything that's happening in the world of football. Just head to BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts and search for Behind the Goals.